Saturday is packed. This episode of Tokyo Revengers and the episodes I've watched today are just pure quality, and this is a good anime. This is a really good anime. I think they had an episode 0 that was a combination of the first 3 episodes. Did watch that for obvious reasons. I wanted to see this episode 1 all the way to the home stretch as it's intended, and wow, I heard a lot of people trying to explain what to expect from this show, and it seemed like it was hard to do so without spoiling, but I kept getting this feeling that it felt like Durarara met with Erased, but also its own unique thing, and yeah, it kind of is exactly that. When you have a character and a description saying that, girlfriend ends up dead, and there's this whole gang war thing, and time travel is seemingly involved, that's a pretty interesting premise. But to kick off an episode where your main character, Takemichi, he has nothing going on. Everything in his life sucks. His apartment sucks, his job sucks, everything about everything just sucks for him. And then he gets pushed in front of a train, isekai type things start happening, but no, we just rewound. We put him back into school when apparently he's hot shit, but actually that's when everything started to go to shit. But to have an episode end with seemingly your main character telling an impressionable kid that I time leaped, that your sister's going to die on this day, do everything in your power to prevent that. I was like, that's a cool way to end an episode, because the kid's impressionable, you just saved his ass from a bunch of goons, makes sense why he would take your word as gospel. But then you see him wake up, and he's back to where we started. The sister's still dead. This boy became a police officer because of his actions in the past. I want your help to save my sister. What kind of time leap trickery are we going to experience in Tokyo Revengers? Because I'm curious to see, is it going to be a show that we go back to the past and we stick there, or is it going to be back and forth? Please no spoilers, I am very excited to see where this one goes. This one seemed like it was a recipe for success. It almost felt like, I'm not sure if I'm the only one who felt that going into this episode and while watching. It kind of gave me a feel of an old school, almost 90s, early 2000s show with how the character designs were, how the characters were interacting. But it had this modern twist to it that just kind of elevated it into this picture perfect package. The comedy was pretty good. I mean, I love the idea of when he first transfers back to his high school days there, his middle school days. They're making fun oh, why'd you only get a fry and a small fry at that, as they're picking out on basically, I don't know, a Big Mac meal or whatever they have there, as they're talking all this shit, how they're gonna go beat up all these second years. Our boy is just having this weird feeling in the back of his mind. The comedy was there with this slight hint of oh my god, is this going bad? Because for me personally, when he originally time leapt back and they're talking about, I think it was his cousin saying the cousin's the leader of this other gang and how all we have to do is throw that name out there and people run for the hills. I was like, oh, is this going to be one of those situations where he actually went back in time, but things are different than how he originally lived his life, so therefore he's going to have to reevaluate how he interacts? Because he's why would my cousin be the leader? And for me personally, maybe a lot of people saw it coming from a mile away. I just assumed maybe the timelines were a little different and he was actually a badass in this timeline. And when we see him just being the lackey getting the sodas as they kick everyone's ass, I was like, oh, yeah, so it wasn't that. It was simply he just wasn't quite remembering what happened until it's too late. And goddamn was that brutal. This is how we kicked off the episode, seeing second years in middle school get their ass handed to them to the point that jaws are probably broke. I mean, one character mentioned how, he was hungry, but he couldn't eat because his mouth was messed up. And just pure blood, almost at least they didn't have weapons because otherwise guts would have probably been there. And to just see how shitty their lives become afterwards. Where do you go past that? If he ends up trying to kill himself again, gets pushed in front of a train or is hit by a car or a gun to the head, and he goes back to that same point. Obviously, he would be able to reevaluate the situation if he could remember what happened, and probably avoid that entire situation. And most likely, the story is going to be about building up a gang to take on that gang, because that gang is the one who's responsible for the girlfriend and her younger brother's death. So that seemingly is the direction. It's just the way they started the episode, transitioned the episode, and then went back to the start. It was such a weird but I think amazing formula that I'm curious to see what they're going to do, especially with this mechanic, because it almost felt like a lot of times when you have anything revolving around time is a gimmick in order to keep people interested. For me personally, while that's a big factor of my mind racing, how is he going to fix the past so the future doesn't explode? At the same time, the thing that really is interesting to me is how you have a character who starts off basically talking about how his life sucks, he's a virgin, nothing about his life's good. And by the end of the episode, you made me say, oh, he's not that typical anime loser character. He honestly just had a shitty time for a long time, and it's understandable why things didn't go his way. After you get your ass handed to you and you become lackeys, the only real way for you to build a connection is to hopefully leave that town, get a new job, but when everyone treats you like shit, like, it's understandable where that dialogue came from, and rather than it feeling cheesy and just edgy, it felt like, I understand why this character's so down in the dumps, and now that he has a way of not only saving his first and only girlfriend, even if they weren't together when she died, this is a chance for him to hopefully rebuild his life and not have something shitty like that happen. Gang stories, I feel like a lot of times in anime aren't as brutal as they probably should be, and if this is an indication of how brutal it can be, with still having some good comedy and great interactions between the characters, I mean, this show's gonna slap very, very hard, I would say. I mean, the scene towards the end where he stands up for the brother, not because of like some noble reasons, he's just trying to have a moment on the swing. He punches one guy out, smashes a bottle threatening, and then the brother's like, hey, you can't just leave that there. It's dangerous. I bursted out laughing. That shit was hilarious. This show just, it has a style to it, has a flair to it, that you don't get to see too often, and with the buzz around the source material, with the buzz around this production in general, I think we're about to watch some peak anime right here, and it's going to be good to see how it's going to evolve over the course, and yeah, the characters seem fun already, ridiculous character hairstyles at times. I love this show, it seems great, and yeah, the opening, if that was the opening and not the ending towards the end of the episode, is really good as well. Like, a lot of times when I have a show that immediately impresses me, I'm already hoping for like a second season, but this is one of those shows that it's hard to even say how many episodes I want of this, because I have no idea how many episodes a story like this needs. A lot of times you just kind of feel like, oh, this is a really good show, I would love at least 24, 36 episodes. But here it's like, how many episodes does a show like this actually need, not only to just cover the full story, but to make it feel well-paced, because this was a really well-paced episode, from shitty life, back in the past, back to the present, with some changes already made because of that. And it seems like the trigger, if the handshake was anything to go off of when he makes an important change, he gets some sort of like a sign that something has happened. And I think that'll be really fun to spot the differences, like if we do stick to the past or even if we flip-flop back around. Either way, when things happen, he gets those like little headache moments. It'll be a fun way to kind of like, you know, find the missing clue, and where does that clue go, and what will it do for the future? Will we get answers right away, or will we have to wait towards the end of the core or something, right? There's just so many little pieces at play that could really build us into something truly extraordinary, and if this first episode had something to prove, I think it proved it to most people probably checking out this episode, because it's just that damn good, honestly. Let me know your thoughts and feelings, and definitely your theories if you have no idea where the show's going to go, and it's just all predictions down in that comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, of course, leave a like, share your support, and hit that subscribe button if you're happy new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.